The White House announces that there's going to be an announcement, if you will, that today Joe Biden will tell us that he is possibly leaning towards canceling $10,000 worth of student debt all at once. Also, pausing the student loan repayments once again. So we'll be talking about that, what this means for you and your future, and where we go from there. In other news, the election for the primaries in Florida was last night, and Nikki Fried is going to be the new queen. Oh wait, no. Haha, she got curb stomped. I wonder if this means that we won't be seeing her show up as one of the safe accounts on Twitter anymore. But we'll talk about that. An airstrike in Syria against Iran-backed groups pops up in the news coming up. I hear that they are going to be announcing it yet today, so we'll be talking about that. And this is in retaliation to a strike from Iran that we didn't hear about. So we'll be talking just a bit about that. And gubernatorial candidates weigh in on Kenosha. Coming into our gubernatorial race, Tim Michels visits Kenosha, while Tony Evers announces a tax break that he can't afford. It is going to be all this and more. Welcome back to the main channel. I am Jay Edgar, and this is Contemporary. Good morning, Edheads. Welcome to Contemporary. My name is Jay Edgar. We've got quite a bit to go over here today, and I do think that once we talk about the student debt day, I think that's going to be a little bit dense here because this has far-reaching ramifications for the everyday man. And I know that the people that are going to be benefiting from this are like, yay, my credit's going to be put back to perfect, or I can afford to do this because I don't have to come back and do this anymore, or oh my god, I owe so much more than I did before, because I don't know what you're doing wrong if you owe $450,000 on a $3,000 student loan that you took out 4 years ago, or 20 years ago, or whatever the hell it was, but you clearly did something wrong. I'm going to tell you that right off the bat, but apparently, allegedly, we're going to find out today that $10,000, if you're making under $125K, is going to be just gone. And this has so many far-reaching ramifications to the entirety of our economy in ways that you can't even begin to imagine right now. So we'll be talking just a bit about that, but yeah, we've got a lot to go over with that, and I realized as I was getting started I didn't have the IBD article up here, so I'm trying to filibuster just a little bit while that archives, because again, it's too early in the morning, it's behind the paywall right now. They've been doing that crap lately again, so it is archiving right now, and we'll continue to watch that and see where that goes, but we're going to get into the news of the morning here. Before we do, make sure you guys go check out the Daily Ignoramus, the Breakdown with Birkenhoff, the R-rated conservative, Porch Boys. I was on their call-in show last night and just basically talk trash, but I mean, what is it that I do normally? It kind of felt good to be able to say the F word on YouTube again because, you know, I've been trying and struggling not to say that here in the midst of trying to appeal to pulling some people away from the AM radio audiences because, you know, you can sit here and listen to me, talk the whole way through for 2 hours, or you can listen to 2 hours of Dan O'Donnell. And I do enjoy Dan O'Donnell too, by the way. But you can listen to 2 hours of Dan O'Donnell and listen to 15 minutes of commercial every 10 minutes for catheters and medicines and all the other fun stuff. If you want to watch a commercial here, I recommend the Twitch channel. I appreciate it when you watch a commercial over here too, by the way. Or throw some bits or throw some lemons on DLive. There are some ways to do that. There's the link in the PayPal if you want to support me. But, I mean, I don't feel like you should have to listen to 15 minutes of commercials to do it. So, that's my recommendation off of that. But go check all of them out. Go check out Tweets by Brit, KTZed, PJ Patriot, Mr. Behavior. Lots of great content creators for you to go back and check out here, many of whom I would like to pick up and bring in to a fold where we come together and bring news by the common man for the common man, culture by the common man for the common man. One of the things I noted too, and I am back in the dating market again, is that when you're exploring, when you find these girls on dating sites or whatnot, I love true crime podcasts, and they're all super liberal. And there's no real voice for that. And, I was thinking about that with KTZed and the fact that, I asked her to go and talk about the Michael Bell case out of Kenosha, which that may be coming up here somewhere in the future. But there's really no influence of true crime that doesn't have a liberal spin to it. So, some good things to go with that. Some good gaming for Mr. Behavior and the fact that he wants to come up and be an independent creator. But I hope to have a studio for him at some point as well. But yeah, lots of stuff that you can come and check out over there at the network. So hope to see you guys there, and hope to see you on the live chats for all these other wonderful program and creators and everybody else who's out there doing their thing. All right, I have filibustered long enough. Let's get into it here. Let's look at the Dow for the morning. The Dow is down across the day yesterday to 32,909.59, down from its previous close of 33,063.61. Yes, that's right, as we're starting to look at what's happening with the markets and with the overheated inflation and the fact that we might get another 3/4 point hit in unemployment to go with it. The markets are starting to actually look at this and say, hey, maybe we anticipated too much on the big guy and maybe not enough on the little guy. So it does look like we've seen some struggles, not struggles like we've seen at the beginning part of the year, but I would almost argue and be a little bit afraid that we might see sub 30K before midterms. It'll either go to 36 or sub 30 is my official prediction here before the midterms, but we'll continue to watch this, see where it goes and what happens with that. Get the live chat up so I can see, make sure I got my microphone on or stuff. But that's what we'll see for that. Looking in at the Bitcoin on the day has had a couple smiley faces go through it. A fairly significant drop, not below 21K yet again, but it clawed its way back and then it dropped again, bringing itself up to 21,459.10. That is down on the day $56 or 0.26%. Bring this out to 5 days so we can see what happened through the day yesterday. It looks like there was a fairly significant rise throughout the day yesterday and then a significant drop once again, and then bringing itself back up to where we are sitting with that now. So some Bitcoin, I mean, it's kind of getting to be a little bit of a gamble with the Bitcoin. I mean, it's always been a gamble because there's actually nothing physical backing it up, but with where the markets are holding it and bringing it, especially with the safe cryptocurrency, the one that Soccer Mom America knows about, and say, oh, my hacker son knows a little bit about that, and I think we should put that on our retirement. Even that's starting to turn into a roller coaster, but we'll continue to watch that and see where that goes. Let's grab let's grab our gas prices first. Our gas prices, we may actually see a reprieve off of that. Whether this is less traveling, which definitely is something that I've noticed on the roads, what few roads that I take, or because we actually are getting some reprieve and some of that Saudi gas is coming in here. The gas has come down day over day from yesterday. The Shell and the Mobil and Lodi are both sub 330 at this point. And looking through the Madison area proper, we are seeing 338s, 339s, and nothing above 340 for the first time in a few weeks. After they started strutting around saying, oh yeah, it came down for 70 straight days. Really? Went up for 2 weeks here, so that's what we see off of that. maybe time to go and toss a little bit in your tank right now. And I noticed that it is down a little bit around here too, so that is some good news if you need to go and top off right now. Now let's grab one from IBD, since we filibustered long enough for that. From Investors Business Daily, Dow futures rise as Tesla climbs ahead of 3-to-1 stock split. From Scott Latonin. Dow futures drifted higher Wednesday as they looked to snap a 3-day losing streak. Tesla will officially split on Wednesday when shares outstanding increase to 4 billion, but trading at the new 3-to-1 split adjusted price will begin on Thursday. Advance Auto Parts, Dycom, Intuit, Nordstrom, Toll Brothers, and Urban Outfitters are key earnings movers on Wednesday. Advance Auto skidded 6.5%, Dycom rose 1%, Intuit jumped 6%, while Nordstrom dove 13%. Toll Brothers declined 2% after topping earnings views, but downgrading full-year guidance on deliveries, and Urban Outfitters dropped more than 2% in early trade. Electric vehicle leader Tesla traded around 1% Wednesday. Elsewhere, Dow tech leaders Apple and Microsoft were mixed ahead of today's stock market open. In the current stock market pullback, Albemarle, Arista Networks, Axcelis Technologies, and Costco, as well as Dow Jones, Amgen, and McDonald's, are among the top stocks to buy and watch. Costco was added to the IBD leaderboard in the wake of last week's breakout move. Arista and Axcelis were featured in this week's stocks near a buy zone column. Early Wednesday, Dow futures rose less than 1% versus fair value, while the S&P moved up 0.2%. The Nasdaq climbed 0.2% in early morning trade. Remember, overnight action in Dow futures and elsewhere doesn't necessarily translate into actual trading in the next regular stock market session. So they're up right now in the futures, but not by very much, so we'll see if that actually holds throughout the day. Among the ETFs, the Nasdaq 100 tracker Invesco QQQ Trust moved up 0.25%, and the SPDR S&P 500 was up 0.2 in early trade. The 10-year yield hovered around 3.05% early Wednesday following Tuesday's ride. This week, the 10-year yield is above the 3% level for the first time since July of 21, and still with no GDP to back it, which tells me that we might see another inflationary month coming here. U.S. oil prices continued to rebound on Wednesday after last week's losses, saw West Texas Intermediate reach their lowest level since January. WTI futures rose 1% early Wednesday, trading above $94 a barrel. Federal Reserve Board members will be closely watching July durable goods, which came out from Commerce Department at 8:30 a.m. Eastern Time. New orders were flat in July versus the previous month, with a 0.3% increase, minus transportation orders. Economists project a sharp slowdown from June, a 0.5% gain for overall orders, and a 0.1% increase, minus transportation orders. Overall orders rose 2% in June. Jerome Powell will give a speech on Friday on the central bank's economic outlook from the Jackson Hole, Wyoming. The Fed has raised interest rates this year in an attempt to bring down inflation, but has sent increasingly mixed signals in coming increases. Yeah, we'll be talking about that and what this means and where we might see a 1% rise, because I do think that's coming. Last week's Fed minutes seemed to push back against market expectations from a dovish pivot after a 6-week stock market rally followed the June 14th to 15th meeting. Markets place a roughly 58% chance of a 75 basis point rate hike in September of 21. 1 week ago, there was a 39% chance. So we'll see what happens with that. Let's grab one from CNBC on the numbers for yesterday, and then I have one on the housing values as well. But reading from CNBC, Dow, S&P, and fall Tuesday notching 3-day losing streak. Stocks fell Tuesday following the worst day since June as investors braced for a hawkish message from the Federal Reserve. The Dow dropped 154.02 points or 0.47% to 32,909.59. The S&P fell 0.22 to 41.28 to 73, and the Nasdaq dropped just ever so slightly, 0.002 to 12,381.30. Both the Dow and the S&P declined for a third straight session. Real estate, healthcare, and communication services were the worst performers in the S&P. Meanwhile, energy was the biggest winner in the broader market index, up 3.6% on the back of rising oil prices. Zoom slumped 16.5% after the video conferencing company lowered its full-year forecast because, well, not as many people are going to Zoom school anymore. So there's that. Traders are coming off a downbeat session as summer rally fizzled out amid mounting rate hike concerns, and as the 10-year yield climbed above 3%. The Dow dropped more than 600 points on Monday, while the S&P and the Nasdaq fell more than 2% each. Those were the biggest one-day drops for the Dow and the S&P since June 16th. The Nasdaq suffered its worst session since June 28th. So, some stuff happening there in the markets here, but this I think is going to be the big one and the one to watch right now, especially if what the people think is going to happen with their student loans versus what's actually going to happen. This one comes from MarketWatch. U.S. house values fell for the first time since 2012, Zillow says. Sellers and buyers are facing a very different housing market to 2020. No crap, Sherlock. In 2020, it was easy to get free money. Or next to free money. You weren't staring down the barrel of 5.5% to 6% interest on a mortgage. And meanwhile, you had all this time, you were working from home, you didn't have your moving expenses. You're like, hey, honey, look, I think that we can actually afford to go buy this house here. From Arthi Swamithan. The housing market isn't crashing, but it's definitely feeling the burn. After 2 frenzied years, home buying is cooling off as mortgage rates rise. Some experts in the field are calling it a housing recession. U.S. home values fell in July by 0.1% compared to the month before, a new Zillow report said. While deceleration in home price growth is typical for this time of year, Zillow noted a small decline is the first monthly dip since 2012. The typical U.S. home value fell by $366 in July and is now $357,107 as measured by the Zillow Home Value Index. Given the dip, Zillow revised its forecast for the growth in home values to 2.4% through the end of July 2023. The current rate of growth is 16%. But this hardly counts as a crash in prices because the typical home value is up 44.5% from July 2019 before the pinko pox pandemic. At this point, sellers are finding themselves with fewer offers and are having to offer more concessions themselves to entice buyers. Buyers, in turn, are gaining more options, seeing inventory gradually rise as the pendulum swings slowly in their direction. The dip in July is badly needed rebalancing that gives home buyers more options, more time to shop, and more negotiating power, Skylar Olson, chief economist at Zillow, said in a statement. Homes have become unaffordable for many given the high prices and mortgage rates. As prices soften, many will renew their interest, and we will continue our progress back to normal, Olson said. There is more going on to this, and these prices are going to come down harder and harder as we go. The value of your dollar is crap right now, and we all know that. Everybody and their mother knows that the value of the dollar is garbage. Your groceries are costing a fortune, and that higher mortgage that you could afford in 2019, 2020, especially when the government was handing out money to try to keep you, and you were in foreclosure, forbearance. When you were sitting in both of these situations, it was easy to sit there and say, oh, you know what? Hey, let's just go and upgrade that to that house. Or, let me just stay here. We'll stop paying the mortgage for a little while because they can't kick us out because of the commie coup. And we'll get caught up on some other bills or buy that new big screen TV or that home audio system that we've always talked about. Honey, wouldn't you love that home audio system? Wouldn't you love how wonderful that is? Hey, let's go buy a new car because we can. We don't have to worry about the mortgage for a little while. And things come to a head And things are going to start coming to a head as the banks start to go through. And I mean, the foreclosure process is going to be a slow process, don't get me wrong. But there are people that are going to look at some of their back bills, their inability to buy groceries, how tight they are at the end of the month, and start thinking about a downgrade. But, there's nobody there to buy the house for what they owe on it right now. And that's where part of the problem is going to start coming out. So there are a few things to watch with this. It's not just the fact that there's more inventory on the market. There is going to continue to be more inventory on the market as things change and our economy changes. Especially if they go to another 3/4 point hike, which does look like it's coming here. So, something to watch for. Something to see. Let's see what's going to be affecting the economy more than anything else right now, though. From the Hill. White House to announce student loan cancellation, payment pause extension on Wednesday. Now, the second part of this headline, we all saw coming. We all knew this was going to come. Because there is no chance in hell, anywhere, that whoever's pulling the Biden strings right now, which more and more I think is Klain. I think Klain is the one that's actually running the country right now. There is nobody who's politically suicidal enough on the Democrat Party to restart student loan payments under a Democrat presidency. That would lead to chaos in the party, like you would never believe if they went back and did that. And they know it. So I knew that last part was coming, but this, under 8.5% year-over-year inflation, and the Fed threatening a 3/4 basis point hike, are you really stupid enough to go and do this? Now, once again, this is just like the Inflation Production Act, where the effects of the inflation that are going to come from this aren't going to be seen until after the changeover in the House. And as much as they try to go and say bravado and say, oh, we're going to keep the House this time, we're just going to do it because we can manifest this. The House is a foregone conclusion. Unless you see honkening to an extent that you've never seen honkening before, the House is lost to the Democrats. The government is jammed up, and the next 2 years of the Biden admin are not going to be doing anything. This is from Alex Gangitano and Hannah Trudeau. Oh look, there's Andrew Yang saying something stupid. The White House is expected to announce a plan to cancel a chunk of student loan debt on Wednesday, in addition to an extension of the existing payment pause, three sources with knowledge of the situation told The Hill. Sources says President Brandon's intended measure will include at least $10,000 in forgiveness for borrowers who make less than $125,000 annually, as well as another payment freeze for roughly 4 months. The $10,000 figure would be the largest forgiveness of student debt per individual to date. The move comes just a week ahead of the White House's self-imposed August 31st deadline. The timing has left millions of Americans waiting for guidance from the Department of Education on whether student loan payments that have been deferred since the start of the pandemic would resume next month. The potential announcement on Wednesday comes within the smallest window of time borrowers have had to determine when their payments would resume. The White House under Biden and former President Trump has extended the pause 6 times since March of 2020, sometimes giving borrowers up to a month's notice on whether the bills would be due. Trump's order temporarily stopped the accrual of interest on federal student loans, effectively putting $1.6 trillion of debt owed by some 40 million Americans on hold. Since Biden has taken office, his admin has greenlighted over $31 billion in student loan relief for hundreds of thousands of borrowers in specific bad situations. I still don't agree with it, but I would give credit where credit is due, and either by a school that has folded up, gone under, like ITT, or the fact that these people are actually serving their publics. I would still rather that come out of the state as an incentive rather than the federal government, but these are situations that can at least be talked about. But what they're doing here, what they're talking about here for the $10,000 for everybody under 125, is to go back and make sure that your little barista, who has 2 gender studies degrees, gets some relief coming off of this. But the $10,000 in forgiveness for a much wider breadth of borrowers will likely not satisfy some Democrats or activists who have pushed the Biden admin to forgive much more in federal debt, student loan debt. In May, Chuck Schumer, Elizabeth Warren, and Raphael Warnock met with Biden to push for forgiveness. Advocates and other Democrats, including Schumer, have pressed for forgiveness up to $50,000 per borrower or to cancel debt entirely. So let's talk about this. Now, your fearless host is actually going to be affected by this. I will not get the full 10,000 because I don't know that much. But yes, there is going to be a small amount of this that will go to me, and I don't want it. I'm not going to give the number, but it's not up to the 10,000, and I don't want it. I don't want any of it. I want to come together, figure it out, and pay off my own. And the other side of that is none of this goes onto private loans. So, if you went to, let's say, Concordia over here in Wisconsin, those aren't federally backed loans. You fill out your FAFSA, yes, for that. But a nice enterprising company, typically one called Navient, comes in and says, oh no, we'll cover that. Don't worry, just do what it is that you do. And those are not covered by any of this. I'm not sure, honestly, what the ratio is. And I tried looking it up yesterday, but there was just too broad of information. I'm going to spend a little bit of time, hopefully today, looking into this a little bit more. But I don't think this is going to help as many people as they think it is, because I think, and this actually was a bit of a slap in the face to me as well. Under the pause, I thought that my private party loans were covered under the pause, so I'd stop paying. And then I started getting phone calls and letters and everything else, and a lot of panic and a lot of people who were angry with me. And I said to the one person, I said, I was the understanding that all these loans were paused. I was trying to get ahead of a couple other things because of that, and I said, yeah, I hear that about 20 times a day. Because a lot of people thought that. Let's talk about inflation with this for just a little bit. And we'll be talking about that a little bit later on in this. But one of the things that Powell is trying to do when he keeps throwing these 3/4 rate hikes is to try to get you, Mr. Consumer, to stop spending money. The government is not going to stop spending money. And the only way to slow down the velocity of cash going through our society, necessitating them to go and brrr and print more and print more and print more, is to get you out of the market. And that's something that I've been telling you. Now, under great circumstances and normal circumstances, we could just stop government spending for 10 years, but apparently we don't have time for rational solutions at this point. But now, whether it be that a bunch of people my age suddenly don't have a $200, $300, $400 monthly payment anymore, or whether it be that suddenly their credit is better than it has ever been before, because they're not struggling to make their $200, $300, $400 payment. What are they going to run out and do? What is it that people my age have been told to do from the moment we started getting our allowances when we were however old that was, 5, 6, 7, 10, 12, or when we started getting our first jobs? Hey, just spend that money as fast as you can get it. Part of the reason that a lot of these kids are in this problem right now. Just spend it as fast as you can get it. So what are they going to do now that they don't have that payment? They're going to go spend it as fast as they can get it. So I have some very, very deep concerns about this. And again, not saying that this doesn't benefit me, but I still don't want it because I know the ramifications and the repercussions that are going to come with it. Not to mention the fact that you've either got to tax this out of people or money printer go burr once again. But that's what we're getting from the Hill. Let's grab one from CNN. White House leaning towards canceling $10,000 in student loan debt for borrowers who make less than $125,000. From MJ Lee and Phil Mattingly. Kind of curious what this dude has to say. Student loan repayment resumes in a few days. Here, what, and I don't know what the rest of that is. Let's listen. You know what?
Right now, the White House is weighing what to do about college loans as the current pause on most federal student loan payments is set to expire at the end of this month. Well, CNN's new reporting overnight is that officials are leaning toward canceling up to $10,000 in debt for borrowers who make less than $125,000 a year. This decision could come as soon as tomorrow, we're hearing. So let's talk about it, the implications, what this would mean. With Mark Goldwine, he is a senior vice president and senior policy director for the nonpartisan committee for a responsible federal budget, also an econ professor at Johns Hopkins. It's good to have you, Mark. Thanks very much.
Thanks for having me.
So I read through all your analysis, and basically it shows that canceling this student loan debt for folks would undermine the inflationary work that the Inflation Reduction Act is set to do and what the administration wants it to do. Why? Why do they cancel each other out?
Well, so the Inflation Reduction Act saves maybe $300 billion in the first 10 years. If we do cancel $10,000 of debt and just extend the pause a few months, we're going to be at about that much in terms of new costs. So all the deficit reduction is going to be wiped out. At the same time, we're probably going to do more to increase inflation from debt cancellation than any inflation reduction from the Inflation Reduction Act.
Okay, so I want to get to the second point you made, and that is, what is inflationary and what is disinflationary. So there are a bunch of economists. I'd say Mark Zandi at Moody's, also former Labor Department economist Heidi Shierholz, who say they think you're wrong, right? And let me talk about Shierholz, for example, who worked in the Obama administration. She says your analysis is, quote, profoundly off base. And the reason she says that is she points to the 2+ year moratorium we've already had on student debt payment. And she says basically folks have had this money in their pockets for 2+ years. And so canceling the student loan debt would not effectively put more money in their pocket right now. How do you respond to that?
Yeah, so what these folks are doing is they're playing a baseline trick. They're pretending that we're going to extend this repayment pause forever. And it's true. Compared to extending the temporary emergency era repayment pause forever, just canceling debt and restarting payments would be disinflationary. But that's not the right comparison. The right comparison is compared to repayments starting in about a week as scheduled. This was always meant to be a temporary pause. If it's a permanent pause, it's not student debt, it's student grants.
I think what complicates this picture, right, for the average viewer watching right now is that they're dealing with inflation near a 40-year high. They're dealing with much more expensive groceries. Gas has come down a bit, but it's still more than what they're used to. More expensive housing, transportation, clothing, I could go on and on. So I just wonder if you're concerned at the possibility that restarting these payments, right, in a few days, worsens that burden on Americans struggling with this inflation in this moment. That's the reality, right?
Yeah, that's exactly what it's going to do. And it's not as if this is going to lift inflation from 8% to 9%. What this is going to do is make it more difficult for us to get inflation down to 2 or 3%, which is where it really should be. It's going to make the Fed's job harder, and that means it's going to increase the risk they're going to have to drive us into a recession to get.
And that's the key of where we're going with this. And in order to get out of the situation we're in, it is almost to a point where they're going to have to drive us into that recession, like he's saying. These kids have come out to a standard of living because they've They spent these last couple of years like, oh, well, I don't have to pay this. I can go and focus on this, or getting equipment for my slam poetry career, or getting better aprons for being I don't know if you have to provide your own uniforms or what you have to do at Starbucks, but as he pointed out, when you're just coming out here and money printer go burr, it's either going to slam a jamma you in the taxes, which I do anticipate is going to be coming at some point, that we're all going to get slam a jammed in taxes. They're going to have to go print it. And with the addition, like I said, with the extra velocity going into the economy on this forgiveness, we are going to come into a point where the Fed is going to have to push us into a recession. I've been talking about it for a couple months, ever since Jerome Powell was at a meeting and said, the quickest way to get out of this would be for us to have 10% unemployment for a year. And I'm just sitting here thinking to myself, man, that's like 1 million people out of the workforce, wondering where their next meal is going to come from. I understand that we're all just pawns to you, Jerome Powell, and we're not actually human beings. But at some point, you've got to look at this and say, how many kids are going to starve over this? But at some point, it's either going to have to be a forgiveness, or these loans are also going to have to get restarted. The payments are going to have to get restarted. They're between a rock and a hard place right now. Let's read from some of the article here. White House officials have been weighing and leaning towards the cancellation of up to $10,000 student debt per borrower tied to an income threshold, with an official announcement set for Wednesday, CNN has learned. According to multiple sources familiar with the discussions, the plan is designed to offer the forgiveness to individuals who earn less than $125,000 a year. It is not clear that the final decision on the details of the announcement has been made, but there could always be the 11th hour changes. A source familiar with the plans confirms to CNN that the announcement will be made on Wednesday. In addition to that baseline of student loan debt forgiveness for individuals who fall under a certain income level, admin officials have also recently discussed the possibility of additional forgiveness for specific subsets of the population, according to sources familiar with the internal discussions in the admin. White House officials have also been leaning towards a final short-term extension. No, it's not going to be final, because they've got to get that, and they've got to keep pushing that through to 2024, 2025, or 2029 in the worst case scenario. The freeze is scheduled to expire August 31st, and the admin has for months signaled it's preparing for the pandemic-era action to end. Payments have not been required on most federal student loans since March of 2020, when the pinko-pox pandemic hit the U.S., greatly affecting the economy. Biden has extended the pause 4 times, most recently in April, arguing it was necessary to allow federal student loan borrowers to get back on their feet. Arbolt, I hate that you're right, but unfortunately you kind of are here. The best way out of the recession is the Holodomor. I hate that you're right. A final short-term extension, should Biden select that path, would likely push the restart of payments until after the election. Detailing its expiration in concrete terms, however, would also provide Biden with something to point to that would ostensibly counter at least some of the increased economic demand created by any corresponding debt forgiveness. In recent days, the White House officials have been in communication with lawmakers to discuss their thinking on student loan debt forgiveness ahead of the current pause on payments expiring, and Biden on Tuesday spoke on the phone with 3 Democratic lawmakers who've been pushing him to cancel as much as $50,000 per borrower, including Elizabeth Warren and Raphael Warnock of Georgia, to discuss the outstanding details in advance of his expected announcement. The president also spoke with Majority Leader Chuck Schumer, with the New York Democrat using the conversation to make a final push to cancel as much student loan debt as possible, according to a Democrat familiar with the call. Schumer has pressed for 2 years for large-scale loan forgiveness and has spoken repeatedly with the White House officials in an effort to advance the idea in an admin that has been split about its merits both politically and economically. So it does seem like they're right on track to go and do this. It doesn't look like they're going to be changing their mind anytime soon. And again, when I talk about inflation and the fact that harvests are likely looking like they're going to be much less than they usually are. Went by a soybean field on my hike on Sunday, this past Sunday. And I have an idea of what soybeans are supposed to look like at this time of year. I mean, I've seen enough of them in the field throughout my life. That's one of the big crops around here. And, I mean, this field just looked sad. I was actually a little bit depressed to see it. Because, I mean, if you're hiking on a trail and walking by soybeans, you should not stop and take a soybean and eat it. Well, you should keep the soy out of your diet anyway, but I mean, at this time of year, you should be able to go and grab one off the stalk and eat it, essentially. Maybe just a little bit immature yet, but for the most part, you should be able to just go grab one off the stalk and go. And I don't know, the ones at that end of the edge of the field that I was on, they weren't there yet. So I'm wondering what crop yields are going to look like, and what that's going to do to the price of vegetables and produce and feed, by the way, over the winter for animals. I've got a little bit of concern about what's going to happen here in months to come, but I mean, we'll continue to watch this. From the Daily Wire, Biden's student loan cancellation would cost $330 billion and largely help the wealthy. From Ben Ziesloff. A reported plan from President Biden to cancel thousands of dollars in loans per borrower would worsen inflationary pressures while largely helping higher income earners, an analysis from the University of Pennsylvania's Wharton School reveals. White House officials are weighing a move to cancel $10,000 of student debt per borrower, earning under $125,000, according to a report from CNN, though some Democrat lawmakers have supported canceling up to $50,000 per borrower. The final decision, which is slated to be made public on Wednesday, occurs as the White House also considers whether to extend the present pause on federal student loan payments, which is currently poised to expire on August 31st. Nixing $10,000 per borrower would cost $298 billion in 2022, and a total of $329 billion by 2031 if the policy is renewed each year, according to the nonpartisan Wharton analysis. Less than 32% of the funding would benefit Americans in the two lowest income quintiles, while 42% would benefit those earning more than $82,400 a year. People in higher income households are more likely to have student debt, and they owe more on average, so most cancellation plans would benefit the wealthy more than middle or lower income families, Cato Institute education policy analyst Colleen Hronik told the Daily Wire. Indeed, a report from the Brookings Institute explained that a third of student debt is owed by the wealthiest 20% of households, while only 8% is owned by the bottom 20%, partially because most degrees are often necessary for the higher paying positions. Post-secondary education typically results in much higher lifetime earnings, $1.2 million for a bachelor's and $3.1 million for a professional degree like law or medicine, Hronik noted. The Wharton analysis says that a permanent loan cancellation announcement could prompt students to eventually reorganize their financing towards additional borrowing. It's fair. Although the policy could also increase access among students who otherwise would not be able to afford higher level degrees, universities themselves could capture the value in form of higher prices as they raise tuition because, hey, just come here. The government's going to cancel it anyway. Ronsick added that Biden's student loan cancellation is an even more drastic distortion because potential borrowers begin weighing the possibility of more one-time cancellations in the future. All federal student aid creates market distortions through tuition and credential inflation, Ronsick continued. When government gives people money to attend college, there will be more demand for college, and when more workers have college degrees, employers start looking for workers with degrees, even for positions that historically did not require one. A new survey from CNBC shows that 59% of Americans are concerned the student debt cancellation will make inflation worse. Yeah, we'll be talking about that. Nixing student debt is particularly popular among the young, while 30% of overall respondents say that no cancellation should occur, and only 19% of adults between 18 and 34 maintain such a position. Meanwhile, the most recent edition of Harvard Youth Poll indicates that Biden's approval among young voters is a meager 41%, constituting an 18% decline since the spring of 2021. Likewise, the polls show that young Republicans are more likely to vote than their Democrat counterparts in the upcoming midterm elections. So, a few things to look at with that, and now that we have the numbers out here too, where's that money going to come from? Is it going to come off the printer? Or is it more likely going to come from your taxes? The cited CNBC article, 59% of Americans worry student loan forgiveness will make inflation worse, CNBC survey finds. The best response to this, because 59% of Americans was trending on Twitter, was some, and I looked at the idiot's profile picture and he couldn't have been more than 21, 22. He had to come out and say, well, 59% of Americans don't have an econ degree, so they don't know what the hell they're talking about. Yeah. These are the people that want you to pay for their stuff in your taxes. From Sharon Epperson and Stephanie Dew. Some experts believe the Biden admin could announce a decision on whether to extend more than 2-year-long pause on federal student loans debt this week. Ahead of the current August 31st deadline, many borrowers are hoping the Education Department will extend the break and announce up to $10,000 in loan forgiveness. Currently, 44 million borrowers owe a collective $1.7 trillion in federal student loan debt. Yet a new poll finds Americans worried that debt forgiveness could have unintended consequences. Already battling higher prices, 59% of Americans are concerned that student loan forgiveness will make inflation worse. According to a new CNBC survey conducted online by Momentive, among a national sample of 5142 adults from August 4th to 15th. That is a bigger sample size than, that's like 5 times the sample size we usually get, too, so it's worth noting. Still, the concern that canceling debt would give borrowers more money to spend and therefore increase inflationary spending may not hold true for many borrowers. Some say they would not change their spending habits if their college debt or a portion of it is canceled. Also, others haven't made many changes during the payment pause. I had a proposal for student debt once, and it had nothing to do with forgiveness. My proposal was very simple, and I'll paraphrase a little bit of it. First off, a one-time strikeout of all penalties. The credit problems that you have from your student loans are gone for one time. And one time, and one time only, all interest is also wiped out. We go back to principal for one time, and then your interest starts to accrue again. But you go back to only principal for one time and one time only. And if you can't restructure, refinance, or figure your finances out on that one time, you're on your own. And maybe your college failed you. But I think those two things right there would jumpstart a lot of what we're seeing. And it would keep the colleges from raising the prices, because they wouldn't be looking and saying, hey, free money. But looking at this, the people are right to be concerned about this. They're seeing everything that they love go up in price. What was it, 2 years ago? A pack of Oreos. Birthday cake Oreos, by the way, my favorite. I go crazy for anything birthday cake flavored. That artificial birthday cake flavoring is one of the best things in the world, and I go crazy for that. But they were $1.99 2 years ago. They are $3.99 at the local Woodman's now. All right, and the last one that we have on this topic, which I said was going to be a big, heavy topic. Biden's using student loan forgiveness to buy votes, reward Democratic base going into midterms, Kevin HaSett. We know. From Fox Business, no author given. Former Council of Economic Advisors Chairman Kevin HaSett argued Tuesday that Biden is likely to pull the trigger on massive student debt forgiveness, telling Varney & Company his goal is to reward his Democratic base ahead of the midterm elections. Kevin HaSett says they've got to reward their base, which is the teachers' unions, the trial lawyers, and the liberal academics. I think they're likely to do some massive forgiveness, and the real irony is Democrats pretend to be for the little guy. But the typical blue-collar worker doesn't have a college degree, doesn't have student loans, and a lot of folks who have worked hard to pay off their loans. And all those people are getting left behind by the Bidens, and they're tossing money at people who haven't paid their loans. Now, the people who haven't repaid their loans disproportionately are the people who are English literature majors or took a grad program that didn't give them a skill, so now they're angry about society, were taught to be Marxist and support the Democrats, and they're about to get a check from Joe Biden. Yeah, he's not wrong. So, that's where we go with that. And if you guys want to discuss, I have a topic chat open in the Discord. I kind of want to see where you guys think that this is going to take the world. So if you guys aren't in the Discord, get in the Discord. I'm going to change the topic slightly after the show and try to get a conversation going, because I think we do need to talk about this. What do you think this is going to do to affect, not just what you think about the loan forgiveness itself, but where you think this is going to take the country? But that's what we go with that. I wanted to put this up top first. And that wasn't the only thing that Biden is going to go give away, $330 billion for student loan forgiveness. Archived from Reuters. Another one that's going to be happening today, U.S. to announce $3 billion in new military aid for Ukraine, according to an official. The U.S. is expected to announce as early as on Wednesday a new security assistance package for the Ukraine of about $3 billion, the U.S. official said on Tuesday. The $3 billion weapons assistance package would be the largest such assistance package that Washington has generated for Ukraine in the 6 months since Russian troops poured over its borders on February. That's it. That's the tweet. So, look for $10,000 in student loan forgiveness and $3 billion going over to Ukraine in the next 24 hours. Well, we'll see what happens. I hope you've been buying that extra can of Spam every time you go to the store, because meat's going to get hard to come by at some point here. But not for the rich. They're still going to eat their filet mignon. Alright, let's talk about what happened last night. From NBC News. Now, I don't necessarily care what's going on in Florida as far as their representatives, because they don't represent me. But I care about this race, specifically. Because this race involved one of those safe Twitter accounts that Twitter likes to go and shove in your face and say, if they read enough socialist propaganda, then they'll turn socialist. If they read enough from Nikki Fried, then they'll vote against DeSantis. It's because they're in an echo chamber and they only hear pro-DeSantis propaganda, so we need to give them anti-DeSantis propaganda. And they actually think this is going to work. So we've been hearing this self-congratulatory stuff from Nikki Fried for the past... When did they start that program, that's You May Like program? Has it been 6 months already? I think it started just after Christmas, so I think it's just been this year, so it's probably been around 8 months, but yeah, every time you log in, you'll either see something from Aaron Parnas, or Jack Kosciarella, or John Cooper, except for me, because he blocked me. Or, for a while, it was... Now, I will say this. I haven't heard from Nikki Fried on Twitter in a while, because I think they found out that she was about to get butt blasted. like she did, and she's no longer going to be politically relevant. So she's not up front and center everywhere anymore. I don't get Jersey Dad reliant anymore either, by the way. But from last night, Florida governor primary election results. Projected winner Charlie Crist with 99% of the vote in. And it wasn't even close. This is like a curb stomping above and beyond what Tim Michaels did to neocon war lover Rebecca Clayfish. 59.7 to 35.3. With a few other also-rans in here that got a little bit of the vote. Candace Daniel and Robert Willis, 2.5 and 2.4. And it wasn't even close. So, again, the most important part of this is, are we not going to hear from Nikki Fried anymore? Please, 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 no more Nikki Fried on Twitter. But not without a victory lap here, and the wokeness tweets out, that's going to leave a sting. Nikki Fried tweets out, and of course they didn't give a date on this. I wish they had. But it was recent because it still had her speaking to the megaphone icon. Nikki Fried, yes, I will win the primary, and yes, I will beat Ron DeSantis in the general. How are those numbers working out for you, Nikki? Still gonna win? Don't worry, no, we'll pull it off at the last minute, I promise. For my libertarian friends, a little bit of hope for you. From the New York Post, John McAfee faked his death and is still alive in Texas, ex-girlfriend claims in Netflix documentary. From Alex Mitchell. The wild and eerie life of supposedly dead antivirus software pioneer John McAfee is only becoming more mysterious. McAfee was widely reported to have hanged himself inside a Spanish jail in June 2021 while awaiting U.S. extradition on tax evasion charges. But according to his Belizean ex-girlfriend Samantha Herrera, he faked his own death, moved to Texas, and is still alive. I don't know if I should say, but 2 weeks ago after his death I got a call from Texas. It's me, John. I paid off people to pretend that I'm dead, but I'm not dead, Herrera claims in a Netflix documentary, Running with the Devil, The Wild World of John McAfee, out on Wednesday. Herrera said that he told her that there are only 3 persons in the world that know I'm still alive, and then asked her to run away with him. The Post attempted to contact Herrera, but was unsuccessful. Good taste. According to Herrera, she and McAfee, who was living in San Pedro, Belize, started dating when she was 18 and planned to marry. McAfee and Herrera fled the nation in 2012 after the suspicious death of his next-door neighbor, Florida man Gregory Fall. Now, Florida man is still alive and kicking, you guys. Don't let the propaganda get to you. Herrera not only lammed it with the person of interest, but also recruited her relative, prominent lawyer Telesforo Guerra, to become his attorney. His side of the story is that they're after him because he didn't pay off the government. They wanted to hurt him to get rid of him, Herrera says in the film, adding that McAfee was able to connect to the Belizean government to corruption. So, that certainly makes life more interesting. Is he alive? I have absolutely no idea. Would it make the world a much more interesting place if he was? Oh, hell yes. We shall see. Some military news from around the world, because, the Ukraine and Taiwan aren't enough. From NBC, U.S. launches airstrikes in Syria against Iran-backed groups. From Courtney Kube, the The U.S. launched airstrikes in Syria on Tuesday, targeting what it said were infrastructure used by groups affiliated with Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps. The strikes were carried out at the direction of whoever's pulling Joe Biden's strings. Colonel Joe Puccino, the communications director for Central Command, said in a statement. Okay, so if this is to be believed as true as NBC wrote it, not as my editorial went, the strikes were carried out at the direction of Joe Biden. How does that conversation go? Mr. President, we have these leaders and this infrastructure in our sights. We can tell the American people that a facility was attacked that we didn't tell them about previously, and we can justify this. And we can take down Iran once and for all. What do you say, Mr. President? That Iran place. Hey, you remember when that used to be called Persia? Those were the good old days, man. I remember going to Persia, and those Persian women, they smell so exotic. They'll let you get in and get it. Mr. President, we need a direction right now. Where am I? Why am I here? Why is it so dark in here, man? Hey, that looks like Delaware. There are not believed to have been any casualties in the strikes, which hit 9 bunkers used for storage. A U.S. military official said the bunkers were described as ammunition depots and logistics supply facilities. The U.S. notified Russia's military minutes before the airstrikes using a deconfliction line. The U.S. military official said the strikes were carried out by F-15 and F-16 fighters. Boy, way to use yesterday's tech. The airstrikes, which happened early on Wednesday local time, were retaliation attacks for August 15th on the U.S. military facilities in Syria, the military official said. The U.S. strikes targeted infrastructure facilities used by groups affiliated with Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, Puccino said. On August 15th, there were drone attacks near Al Tanf garrison, and rocket fire landed near the Green Village base. Officials have said there were no casualties, the military base said. Boy, do I have a lot of questions about this. A little bit more on this one from CNN. Biden orders airstrikes against Iranian-backed groups in Syria following attacks near base holding U.S. troops last week. President Brandon ordered airstrikes against Iranian-backed groups in Syria on Tuesday, a little over a week after the number of rockets struck near the military base in northeastern Syria, housing U.S. troops. The airstrikes conducted by the U.S. military targeted Iranian-backed groups in Deir ez-Zor, Syria. U.S. Central Command said in a statement, the strikes targeted infrastructure facilities used by groups affiliated with Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps. Colonel Joe Puccino, spokesman for CENTCOM, said in a statement. So, let's see, the strike was intended to target 11 of the bunkers since the U.S. could not be certain whether the other 2 bunkers were clear of people, Puccino said. Okay, how are you clear that the first 11 were? But shortly before CENTCOM carried out the strike, the military waved off 2 more of the bunkers because a small group of people nearby. In the end, Puccino said the military struck 9 bunkers in the complex in eastern Syria. The goal of the strike was to destroy the bunkers, Puccino said, according to an initial assessment. No one was killed as a result. They say, but you know, people like whoever's pulling Biden's strings, and the Clintons and the Obamas, and the Bushes and the Romneys and the Cheneys, they do like blowing up little brown children in Muslim countries. What actually happened with this? Of course, we're not going to know. From Fox, a little bit of news from my neck of the woods here. The scars of Kenosha. Wisconsin Republicans to tour city streets 2 years after the riots raged. From Houston Keene. A pair of Wisconsin Republicans will be touring the streets of Kenosha 2 years after anti-police riots ravaged the city. Do-Nothing Brian Stile and gubernatorial candidate Tim Michels will be touring the scarred streets of Kenosha on Tuesday, recognizing the 2-year anniversary of the deadly riots. Stile told Fox News Digital that he and Michels plan to meet with the Kenosha Police Union before touring the impacted parts of Kenosha. I remember that. I remember seeing that burnt-out garbage truck. The pair will also speak with a business owner whose shop was burning to the ground by rioters over the course of the 3 nights of riots in Kenosha before holding a roundtable with members of the local law enforcement community. And I think what we're going to see is, with the 2-year look back, we're going to see the same story that we saw during and after the riots in Kenosha. That Kenosha needed additional resources, Stile said. Governor Evers failed to provide those additional resources until somebody shot back. That's an important part of that. And as a result, not only was there property damage, not only were people seriously injured in the rioting, but people ultimately lost their lives, and none of that had to occur, he continued. If Evers, as well as Mandela Barnes, for that matter, didn't release inflammatory statements before they had all the facts. Evers claimed law enforcement officials have mercilessly killed black Americans following the shooting of Jacob Blake. And this, by the way, was his initial tweet off of this. Tonight, Jacob Blake was shot in the back multiple times in broad daylight in Kenosha. Kathy and I joined his family, friends, and neighbors, and hoping earnestly that he will not succumb to his injuries. While we do not have the details yet, which is really the indication that you should have shut the hell up instantly, what we know for certain is that he's not the first black man or person to have been shot or injured or mercilessly killed at the hands of individuals in law enforcement in our state or in our country. He says, as people went out and poured into the streets to go and start up the riots. Now, I want to talk, with this in mind, just a little bit about the January 6th riots and the riots that sprung up across the country over St. George and St. Jacob. And the riots that have been attempted since then, when we keep seeing things like this. When we see a significant story like the Loyola one that gets just brushed under the rug and not talked about. As far as January 6th went, I do believe that there were infiltrators from the DNC and from the government in that. The FBI, Antifa, which is government paid, and probably FBI in and of themselves. BLM, dressed up to the nines to get into that. To come back out there and make this look as bad as possible. But I actually believe the same thing about the Kenosha riots. I don't believe, right off the bat, that a lot of these people want to see their own communities burned. But there always seem to be people coming from in and out of state. From far reaches. I mean, look at Gage Grosskreutz, who admitted that he's gone to several riots around the country and lost a part of his bicep for his trouble on this particular one. To go back and try to stir this up and try to get people to throw the brick. I don't think any of that was organic. I really don't. And I think inflammatory language from Evers and outside hands pushing to get into this, to make a burning image of this is Trump's America. Riots and lawlessness in the streets. He can't handle his own domestic agenda. And now, when people get ready to go out and, after the Loyola killing, I saw the footage of the people trying to get a riot going. And I guarantee somebody was out there with a brick in hand and The same people who were encouraging people to throw the brick or throw the Molotov in Kenosha, in Minneapolis, or a host of other places, or in Louisville, around the country, grab that person's hand as it was thrown and say, no, don't throw the brick. This isn't Trump's America anymore. Barnes, by the way, meanwhile, blamed officers for their actions and claimed Blake, who was armed with a knife, was trying to de-escalate a fight in his community when he was shot, which was later debunked. Last night, Jacob Blake was shot in the back 7 times in front of his children. This wasn't an accident. The officer's deadly actions attempted to take a person's life in broad daylight. Like many of you, the video burned into my mind, like all the past videos just like it. The irony is not lost on me that Jacob Blake was trying to de-escalate a fight in his community. The responding officer didn't feel the need to do the same, and now we know Jacob Blake's name. And unfortunately, he got shoved aside too, by the way, when he was no longer relevant to the situation. The Republican congressman said that much of the violence in Kenosha could have been prevented if Evers had provided the resources that Kenosha needed, and criticized the Democrat governor for turning away federal help from former President Trump. And this failure of leadership by our governor directly impacted the thousands of people who call Kenosha home, Style said. And it was really indicative of what we're seeing of the far progressive left, that they would rather follow their political base rather than do what's needed to protect the people in their respective community. And my view on this is everybody has the right to feel safe in our community, absolutely everybody, the congressman continued, and our governor's failure to provide that assistance has, in many ways, led to the destruction, the damage, the injuries, and ultimately the loss of life. Style said the community of Kenosha is strong, but that doesn't mean the scars of those 3 nights aren't still felt. There are still buildings that have not been replaced that were burned to the ground. Style said some buildings still have boards on them that were put up during the 3 nights, but overall the city of Kenosha has come back and is coming back stronger than ever. And this, by the way, is far, far away. I know where this is. And this is far away from where any of the violence was. And this, by the way, was probably a little bit more of a virtue signal than a fear of their building getting burnt up. This is a little bit closer. I believe this is right on Sheridan Road. That's the same building again. I don't normally take from the Federalist because they're not green check verified, but I'm a little bit curious about this one here and possibly where this could go if something like this were to happen. And wondering if this could be a Bush did 9/11 moment. The Federalist writes, 2 years after Kenosha riots, why no August 23rd committee to investigate the big lie that stoked the flames? From Kylie Griswold. By the way, this is from the other side of where we saw that sign busted out. That's where that building was, where I said that's right on Sheridan Road. Perhaps it's time to assemble an August 23rd Select Committee that, instead of engaging partisan theater, actually gets to the bottom of the Kenosha riots. August 23rd, 2020 is a night Kenosha residents can't help but remember, but would rather forget. At the hands of a vindictive Black Lives Matter groupies and other self-described racial justice activists, the Wisconsin town went up in flames 2 years ago today. Rogues started fires at government buildings, they set ablaze garbage trucks, and torched upwards of 100 vehicles in a car lot owned by an Indian immigrant. Smashing the windows of those who escaped the inferno, they vandalized the post office and a high school, and their flames completely consumed a century-old camera shop. That's only a fraction of what followed the justified police shooting of Jacob Blake. Boarded up windows were scrawled with messages begging riders to pass over them. Please, kids above, the elderly live here, demonstrators taunted the scant law enforcers, posted outside the courthouse, and when Wisconsin's Democratic Governor Tony Evers refused to send enough National Guardsmen, After a full 24 hours of rioting, despite the locals' pleas for help, he sent more troops to Milwaukee. During the NBA Finals, armed citizens stepped up to defend the property and ultimately themselves, resulting in the deaths of 2 people. That was 2 years ago. Now we're watching the House January 6th committee stall on the show trial for Americans who participated in the riot at the U.S. Capitol and many who didn't on January 6, 2021. Last November, we witnessed a courtroom drama for a 17-year-old kid who defended his life with a firearm during the riots but was slandered by legacy media as a white supremacist and a murderer. Now, after more than 60 people have been charged with crimes related to the Kenosha riots, with supposedly many more to come, why has there been no large-scale investigation into these deadly riots, the players behind them, and the destructive ideology that sparked it all? Despite Democrats' constant talk about Donald Trump's big lie, they fall silent when confronted with evidence. Their race obsession can spur lethal race revolutions. I don't believe that that's entirely what happened either. You know, they talk about the big lie, police brutality, shoot first, detain second. Blake could have been grabbed, he could have been tased. I mean, we all saw the video. We all know what went on with that, but really, I do. I look at something like this and the riots of the summer of 2020 and wonder how many government agents were egging this on to make this look as bad as possible for the former president. And how much of this was actually grassroots, especially given the fact that they can't spurn up a grassroots demonstration now. From the Associated Press, Wisconsin governor calls for tax cut as rival tours Kenosha. From Scott Bauer. Tony Evers proposed a $600 million annual tax cut on Tuesday, an election year proposal that Republican legislative leaders rejected as a vote-buying ploy. Evers announced the proposed cut at the same time as a Republican rival, Tim Michels, was touring Kenosha on the second anniversary of the sometimes violent protest over... Really? Really? Sometimes violent? Associated Press? Over a police shooting, Michels has made Evers' reaction to the unrest in Kenosha a key plank of his campaign against the Democratic incumbent. Michels and legislative leaders accused Evers of trying to divert attention from the anniversary of the Kenosha unrest. Evers said he was trying to help families struggling with high inflation. The proposal from Evers, released less than 3 months before the November election, comes just 5 months after the legislature rejected another tax cut he proposed that was nearly 3 times as large and included a $150 rebate to taxpayers. Evers cited the state's projected $5 billion budget surplus as a reason to enact his latest plan. Evers proposed similar tax cuts in each of the past 3 years that the legislature rejected. Wisconsin families have been through a lot over the past few years, and we know that while our state and economy continue to recover, folks are still worried about rising costs and making ends meet, Evers said in a statement. Evers' proposal would cap co-pays for insulin at $35, repeal the state's minimum markup law in an attempt to lower gas prices, cut income taxes by 10% for individuals earning less than $100,000, and families earning less than $150,000. Other proposed tax cuts would benefit seniors on fixed incomes, expand property tax relief for veterans with disabilities, and attempt to lower the cost of caregiving and child care. Our state is a strong financial position. There's no reason these dollars should sit in state coffers when families need help now, Evers said. Now, it's probably vote buying for the fact that he's done really nothing for the state in his entirety here. He can't get any spending done because the Republicans in the legislature have blocked every chance that he's had, and it's not like he isn't trying to gobble up that $5 billion surplus. He is trying, but he is failing. Another interesting story coming out of here from wearegreenbay.com, CBS. Large-scale U.S. Marshals operation ends in 260-plus arrests throughout eastern Wisconsin. Yep. Got to get those streets cleared for the RNC. From Ben Newhouse. U.S. Marshals of the Eastern District of Wisconsin partnered with federal, state, and local law enforcement to remove violent criminals from communities throughout eastern Wisconsin over the summer. The 2-month initiative, Operation Triple Beam Honey Badger, was conducted between May 22nd and July 31st. The operation was aimed to arrest violent offenders and remove illegal guns and drugs from Wisconsin communities. Authorities say that 268 arrests were made as a result of the investigation. The majority of these arrests were made in Milwaukee, but operation also conducted throughout Waukesha, Racine, Sheboygan, Manitowoc, Green Bay, Oshkosh, and Appleton. Along with the hundreds of arrests, 860 warrants were also cleared in the process, including 47 for homicide, 220 for narcotics, 60 for sex crimes and offenders. U.S. Marshals also removed between $750,000 and $1,110,000 worth of illegal drugs from Wisconsin communities, including cocaine, heroin, fentanyl, marijuana, methamphetamine, ecstasy, oxycodone, and other various pills. Hey, Marshals? Where's that being stored? Asking for a friend. Close to $250,000 worth of illegally owned guns and ammo were also seized. Hey, where's that being stored? Asking for a friend. This type of success could not have happened without the assistance of our local, state, and federal task force officers, said Marshal Anna Ruzinski. Operation Honey Badger was very effective, and I'm proud to say that not one law enforcement officer, offender, or citizen was injured during the execution of this operation. So, a lot of drugs that the cops and the DEA are probably going to be using for their own pleasure before selling back into these communities for a profit. And guns and ammo as well. That, of course, we are never going to see again. But the operation is concluded, and once again, I do have to wonder how many of these people are actually out and being picked up for actual criminal offenses, hurting people and taking their stuff, and how many are just out there for getting popped for smoking a joint. We'll have to see. Let's grab one from Just the News, and we have to grab it from Just the News because, you know what? Nobody in the mainstream wants to talk about this one. Biden White House facilitated DOJ's criminal probe against Trump scuttling privilege claims, according to memos. Which is interesting, because Biden apparently had no idea that this was even happening. He found out about it on the news. From John Solomon. Long before it professed no prior knowledge of the raid on Donald Trump's estate, Biden White House worked directly with the Justice Department and National Archives to instigate the criminal probe into alleged mishandling of documents, allowing the FBI to review evidence retrieved from Mar-a-Lago this spring and eliminating the 45th president's claims to executive privilege. According to contemporaneous government documents reviewed by Just the News. The memos show then White House Deputy Counsel Jonathan Sue was engaged in conversations with the FBI, DOJ, and National Archives as early as April, shortly after 15 boxes of classified and other materials were voluntarily returned to the Federal Historical Agency from Trump's Florida home. By May, Sue conveyed to the archives that President Biden would not object to waiving his predecessor's claims to executive privilege, a decision that opened the door for the DOJ to get a grand jury to issue a subpoena compelling Trump to turn over any remaining materials he possessed from his presidency. The machinations are summarized in several memos and emails exchanged between the various agencies in spring of 2022, months before the FBI took the added unprecedented step of raiding Trump's Florida compound with a court-issued search warrant. The most complete summary was contained in a lengthy letter dated May 10th that acting National Archivist Deborah Steidel-Wall sent Trump's lawyers summarizing the White House's involvement. On April 11, 2022, the White House counsel's office, affirming a request from the DOJ, supported by an FBI letterhead memo, formally transmitted the request that NARA provide the FBI access to the 15 boxes for its review within 7 days, with the possibility the FBI might request copies of specific documents following its review of the boxes, Wall wrote to Trump defense attorney Evan Corcoran. That letter revealed the Biden empowered the National Archives and Records admin to waive any claims to executive privilege that Trump might assert block the DOJ from gaining access to documents. The counsel to the president has informed me that in light of the particular circumstances presented here, President Brandon defers to my determination in consultation with the Assistant AG for the Office of Legal Counsel regarding whether or not I should uphold the former president's purported protective assertion of executive privilege, Wall wrote. I've therefore decided not to honor the former president's protective claim of privilege. This is a lot of legalese to come out and say the Biden admin changed the rules and didn't tell him. The Biden admin changed the rules and didn't tell Trump that he changed the rules. That Trump was now in commission of possession of documents that are not any longer covered under executive privilege. Ignorance of the law is no excuse, but literally when you go back and change the rules because everybody else had the same rules, that does seem a little bit like entrapment, and it does sound like there's some entrapment going on here. Look, the left, they've been out to get President Trump because President Trump's a threat to the clique, to the swamp, to the bureaucracy, to the deep state, Jim Jordan told the Just the News, Not Noise television show Tuesday night. Whatever term you want to use, and they all know it. That's why they were out to get him before he was in office. That's why they set up the whole Russian collusion hoax. That's why they tried to get him while he was in office. And of course, obviously, they continue to do so now that he's left. It's just never going to end. It never does end. So, we'll continue to watch this and see what happens with this. From Politico, documents recovered at Mar-a-Lago were among the government's most classified. Letter shows. From Kyle Cheney, Andrew Desiderio, and Lara Seligman. The National Archives swallowed more than 700 pages of classified material that you and a jury are never going to be able to see, by the way. Just a reminder of that. Including special access program material, some of the most highly classified secrets in the government, and 15 boxes were recovered from former President Trump's Mar-a-Lago estate in January, according to correspondence between the National Archivist and his legal team. Okay, but he returned them. The May 10th letter, posted late Monday on the website of John Solomon, a conservative journalist and one of Trump's authorized liaisons to the National Archives to review papers from his presidency, showed that NARA and federal investigators had grown increasingly alarmed about the potential damage to national security caused by the warehousing of these documents at Mar-a-Lago, as well as Trump's resistance to sharing them with the FBI. These records include 700 pages of classified material according to the letter sent by National Archivist Deborah Wall to Trump attorney Evan Corcoran, and it doesn't include records covered by the Justice Department and FBI during a June meeting and the August 11th search of Mar-a-Lago premises. Wall's letter describes earlier the correspondence in which Trump's team objected to disclosing all the contents of the 15 boxes to the FBI. As you're no doubt aware, NARA has an ongoing communication with the former president's representatives throughout 2021 about what appeared to be missing presidential records, which resulted in the transfer of 15 boxes of records to NARA in January 2022, Wall wrote. In its initial review of materials within those boxes, NARA identified items marked as classified national security information up to the top secret level, and including sensitive compartmented information and special access program materials. But you got it back. As soon as you asked for it, you got it back. And my big question is, why did it get sent out in the first place? That's always going to be my question. I'm never going to have an answer to that, but Why did it get sent out in the first place? The world may never know. Let's talk about public schools. Randy Weingarten, former head of the, I believe, National Teachers Union. AFT Pres, American Federation of Teachers President. Teacher, unionist, fighting for children and communities, democracy and justice, public education, healthcare as a right, wife of S. Kleinbaum, pronouns she/her. Randy Weingarten says, all the chaos we're seeing around public schools right now is part of the privatization push, says Amy Froggy, to market new solutions for schools. Privatizers have to create doubt and fear around public schools. No, you and the teachers union in the public schools kind of did that all on your own. I hate to tell you this, but you kind of did this by yourself. And her evidence for this, before she locked down the replies, by the way, a Salon article. After right-wing education hero insults teachers, Tennesseans push back on Bill Lee's charter plan. Is it too late? It's too late. Faith has been lost in the public school system, and it's been gone for a while from the students who sit there and look at the fact that their Chinese counterparts score way better than them in math and engineering. And meanwhile, as more businesses have come out and said, oh, well, we need to have a high school diploma to have you work here, the curriculum has been dumbed down to make sure that everybody just gets through and nobody has to get held back. So they're out and ready for work and ready for college at age 18, ready to go sign on that line to say, yes, I can go to college and pay this back. But that's not all. Weingarten also caught in another lie here. My bad. Teachers Union President Randy Weingarten apologizes for circulating fabricated Florida banned book list. Oops, my bad. From Joseph McKinnon. A social media post circulated by Randy Weingarten, the president of the American Federation of Teachers, claimed that The Handmaid's Tale of Mice and Men, The Outsiders in 1984 were among 21 other books on Florida's anti-woke banned book list. The post garnered over 23,200 retweets and received over 135,400 likes on Twitter. Like the novels it contained, the list was also a work of fiction. Randy Weingarten. Books we have taught for generations. Florida's anti-woke banned books list. A Wrinkle in Time. The Absolute True Diary of a Part-Time Indian. Roll of Thunder, Hear My Cry. Handmaid's Tale. The Catcher in the Rye of Mice and Men. The Adventures of Huck Finn. Why in God's name would the right wing get rid of that? Forever. The Kite Runner. To Kill a Mockingbird again. The Giver, The Outsiders. 13 Reasons Why. That one probably should be banned from kids, but... The Harry Potter series, George. Okay, so why would half of these even be on here? Did you even check this? Apparently not. Randy Weingarten tweets with this. I should have double checked before I retweeted this list. My bad. Looks like some of the books weren't banned. Book bans are very real and dangerous. For an accurate list, go to Red Wine and Blue and Pen America. And I'm pretty sure that if you go there, you're going to find an actual fictitious list as well. So this is absolutely a trustworthy person. Pelosi news. Nancy Pelosi's husband pleads guilty to DUI, charged and sentenced to 5 days. 5 days, by the way. The judge also ordered Paul Pelosi to serve 3 years of probation stemming from his May 28th arrest. From David K. Lee and Deanna Dasrath. How many times has he done this that he's getting jail time, by the way? I mean, even here, You get a DUI, you're typically home the next morning with a hangover and a mark on your arm from where they did the blood draw, but you're typically home the next morning. Speaker Pelosi's husband pled guilty to DUI charge in California on Tuesday and was sentenced to 5 days, although he's unlikely to serve any further time behind bars, authorities said. Oh yeah, no time served. Paul Pelosi pleaded guilty to driving under the influence of alcohol causing injury, the Napa County District Attorney's Office said in a statement. He was sentenced to 5 days and 3 years probation stemming from the May 28th crash in Napa County, north of San Francisco. Pelosi was not in court on Tuesday, and his lawyer entered the guilty plea on his behalf. The DUI misdemeanor didn't require the defendants present unless ordered by a judge, and Pelosi was not ordered by the court to personally appear, according to the DA's statement. Pelosi has already served 2 days and received 2 more days of credit, Assistant DA Paul Garrell told NBC News in a statement. In addition, Paul will have to immediately enroll in, pay for, and successfully complete a licensed DUI program for 3 months, according to the DA's statement, and pay almost $7,000 in fines. So there's going to be a chip stock that's going to go down slightly in the next couple days. The video has been released. I know that people were requesting this for a long time through Paul Pelosi's DUI dashcam video released hours after guilty plea. There's some stills of it. Authorities have released roadside footage of Speaker Pelosi's husband slurring his words following a drunken crash in California, just hours after he pled guilty Tuesday to a DUI charge. Wow. Well, he messed up his Porsche, that's for sure. And there doesn't appear to be any damage on the Jeep. But let's watch. The Daily Wire's provided us with the video.
Do you think you're physically able to balance on one foot or another? No. Okay. Yeah, I don't want you to injure yourself if you can't. Would you be willing to do the breathalyzer test? Well, no, I've only essentially done 2 tests, but I have to do a couple. And rather than waste your time and do a bunch of different tests, if we just do that one, that'll be... most of them require balancing, and I wouldn't want you to fall over and hurt yourself. So the balance test, what it's going to require, so I'll explain it to you, and then you let me know if you're okay or you feel comfortable performing it. So you could try both feet out if you want. I'll let you start. You can try the test with both feet. I'll give you like a pre-trial run, for lack of a better term. You could try it with both feet, see which one you feel more comfortable with, and then once you're ready, just let me know. Are you sure you could complete the test? Okay. Because I really don't want you to fall over and hurt yourself. That's the last thing I want. Right, but that defeats the whole purpose of the test, grabbing onto a patrol car. You seem pretty shaky on your legs, and I don't want you to fall over. So. Well, I'm not gonna fall over. It's a question. Right. Well, just based on what I'm seeing, I don't feel comfortable having you perform the test because I don't want you to have the potential to fall over and hurt yourself. That's not what I'm trying to accomplish. So we'll do a different test. and then I determine that they're still under the influence, and I place them under arrest, then there's a separate chemical test that they're required to take. So it's 2 separate breath tests. Like I said, this one is voluntary. I'm requesting you do it, but like I said, you have the option.
We did always have a test.
Right.
And
But
I passed all of the tests.
so,
Why are we doing that?
so none of the tests are pass or fail. And a lot of people actually think that they're pass or fail, but there's not. None of the tests are pass or fail. There's just different clues that I'm trained to look for when I'm. So, EGN, no LLC. Mr. Blomberg was spot on 30 seconds. He did finger count. He performed that fine. But in terms of a one-leg stand and walk and turn, well, I didn't even have him do them just because he's constantly grabbing onto the patrol car just to be able to keep his balance.
Right.
I did see some HGN.
So that's the DUI video, and really honestly, I mean, I'm sitting here playing armchair quarterback at this point to the police officer, but if I was in that situation, I would have just gone straight for the breathalyzer. Dude is 95 years old. Standing on one leg is a difficult proposition under the best of circumstances. Is that how old he is? I think he's that old. No, he's only 82. I thought he was older than that. But even still, homie's 82 years old. Standing on one leg is a difficult proposition under the best of circumstances. I don't care how much Botox you pump into the dude. Standing on one leg is a difficult proposition for him. Your muscles break down. It happens. When they've been in your body for 82 years. But yeah, he's going up for a couple days. Alright, we can probably finish, I think, the rest of these out. It'll be tight. Let's see. From CNN, prosecutor dismissed charges against Atlanta police officers involved in fatal shooting of Rayshard Brooks. From Eric Levinson, Jamil Lynch, and Amir Vera, and Nuran Salahaya. A Georgia special prosecutor announced Tuesday that the murder and assault charges will be dismissed against 2 Atlanta police officers involved in the fatal shooting of Rayshard Brooks in June 2020, saying the officers acted reasonably in response to a deadly threat. Both acted as reasonable officers would under the facts and circumstances of the event that night. Special Prosecutor Peter Skandalakis said both acted in accordance with well-established law and were justified in the use of force regarding the situation. The announcement comes 2 years after Brooks, a 27-year-old black man, was shot and killed outside of Wendy's after he fought 2 officers who tried to arrest him for DUI. During the struggle, Brooks' overpowered officers, Garrett Rolfe and Devin Brosnan, took a taser from Brosnan and ran away. According to the prosecutors, while fleeing, he turned back and fired the stolen taser at Rolfe, who then shot Brooks twice in the backs and buttocks, killing him, prosecutors said. I was going to say, is this the one where he just got in the car and tried to drive off? But no, this wasn't. This was the grab of the taser. The incident was extensively captured on video, including body cam and Wendy's surveillance video and witness cell phone video. The fatal shooting, less than 3 weeks after the killing of George Floyd, St. George held be his name in Minneapolis, sparked protests across Atlanta and beyond amid national demonstrations over police brutality and racial injustice in Atlanta. The Wendy's restaurant was set ablaze. Hundreds blocked a major interstate. Authorities fired tear gas and police chief stepped down. I hate the fact that they burned up the Wendy's because that probably lost a lot of people in that community the job. And you always have to have the fear if somebody was in the Wendy's at the time or somebody else could have got hurt about that. But man, can you imagine how good that smelled? Can you imagine how wonderful the fried grease and fried stuff smelled in this? As far as the shot for Rayshard Brooks, I can't believe it took this long to go through the investigation. Now, would I have handled this differently? And the initial parts of this? Probably. If he is asleep in the drive-thru and not hurting anybody, I don't know that I would have gone to arrest him specifically. Unless, and I believe he did have a warrant out for him otherwise. So there is that, but, just a guy passed out in the Wendy's. I mean, hell, as the Wendy's worker, I'd probably come in and say, hey man, can I get your keys? Let's just park your car. We'll lock you in there, and we'll let you sleep it off. If it was me. But I don't like having the police involved. But, once the taser was grabbed and aimed and fired, all bets were off. Once we were to that situation, once we were to that point, all bets were off at that point. So, I do think this one absolutely was justified. Again, if it was just a matter of struggle, fight, or a guy tried to run as he realized that he was about to get picked up for a warrant for while he was on DUI, it would have been one thing. But he legitimately had a weapon, which could have escalated to a deadly weapon, pointed at a police officer. At that point, you have forfeited your life. If you try to kill the state, they will kill you back. And as I've said, I always say, if you've got to fight the government, let them bring the fight to you. Don't go looking for the fight with them. But if they bring the fight here, I am under no delusions that I'm going to walk away from it either. My only hope is that I take a few of them with me. I am under no delusions that I'm going to survive. None whatsoever. Once you pointed that weapon at the agent of the state, you've forfeited your right to live. But, we're sitting back here. We can't go back and change anything off of that. So, that's where it sits. Some Kristi Noem news from the Associated Press. As daughter sought state license, Noem summoned agency head. From Stephen Groves. Just days after the South Dakota agency moved to deny her daughter's application to become a certified real estate appraiser, Kristi Noem summoned to her office the state employee who ran the agency, the woman's direct supervisor, and the state labor secretary. Noem's daughter attended too. Cassidy Peters, then 26, ultimately obtained the certification in November 2020, 4 months after the meeting, at her mother's office. A week after that, the labor secretary called the agency head, Sherry Bren, to demand her retirement. According to an age discrimination complaint Bren filed against the department, Bren, 70, ultimately left her job this past March after the state paid her $200,000 to withdraw the complaint. Exactly what transpired at the July 27, 2020 meeting in the governor's office wasn't clear. Noem declined an interview request, and her office declined to answer detailed questions about the meeting. The Associated Press is disparaging the governor's daughter in order to attack the governor politically. No wonder Americans' trust in the media is at an all-time low, spokesman Ian Fury said. Still, government ethics experts who reviewed the series of events at the AP's request said Noem's decision to include her daughter in the meeting created a conflict of interest regardless of what was discussed. That's actually true, by the way. While Peters was applying for the certification, Noem should have recused herself from discussions on the agency, especially any that would apply to her daughter's application, said Richard Painter, a professor at the University of Minnesota Law School who was the chief ethics lawyer for the former president, George W. Bush. Imagine being that person. I am the chief ethics lawyer for one of the most corrupted and evil administrations in history. How do you look at yourself in the mirror at that point? As far as Noem goes, in order to make a judgment on this, I need to know what was discussed in the meeting. If I don't know that, then this is a worthless thing. But it's the Associated Press going after the MAGA candidates again, trying to find something on them to try to keep you from voting for more MAGA candidates in November. Look at what these evil, corrupted governors did. These evil, corrupted House people did. They're all evil and they're all corrupt. That's the point that they're getting at with this. Is it scummy that she did it? Probably. It's 9:32. We gotta head out of here. We've got some Elon drama for tomorrow, though. Right on deck, ready to go. But with that, we're gonna head out of here for the day. But the last thing that we do on Wednesday is I talk about something that restores my faith in humanity, or something that I'm very thankful for. And there are a few things for that. I know that I went on a nice big long hike and went outside and touched grass over the weekend. I'm feeling it a little bit right here too. By the way, my thighs are feeling it. I'm feeling it because the portion of trail that I went on was fairly aggressive. But I'm looking back at things right now, and I don't know what happened in my life. Like I have most faith that God exists because I feel like I've been punished for most of my life in a way that people normally don't get punished. I was bad. The Lord started punishing me, put me into deep financial dire straits. And yet, over the past few weeks, it seems like everything has been turning out well. I'm a little bit wary of this because I'm waiting for the other shoe to drop and for myself to get hammered financially, but it's just like I've got the stimulus, which they're going to force me to take now, and then lawsuit with my student loan provider went through, and got a little bit of cash for that went right in the savings. And I'm looking for, during the crash, to be able to go out and get a nice, moderate piece of property. Maybe not the biggest one in the world, but it just seems like everything has been working out in my favor lately. And I'm a little scared of this because it's never been that way in my life, ever. But I'm trying to move on it at the same time. You know, I've looked at a couple other things. It looks like some parts of my credit are starting to improve as well. So, you know, fingers crossed, we'll get those last two little black marks off there, which, by the way, if you guys want to throw a little bit of bits or a little bit of PayPal if you like what you see and you think that it's worth a little bit of change. I know that we're all in a recession right now, so I don't want to compel anybody to do so, but if you like it, you know, getting us closer to that $3,000 mark is going to help get a nice new studio where I don't have to sit and wonder when the dog is going to be chewing on the bone above me here. So definitely, guys, if you want to help out with that, go back and do that. But just the fact that it's all coming together right now, I'm thankful for it. Definitely, don't get me wrong. Still a little wary, because I'm always going to be, because I've lived the life that I've lived and seen the things happen that I've seen happen. But this may be a thing coming up next spring. New studio, new surroundings, with nobody upstairs. Wouldn't that be nice? Wouldn't that be interesting? Definitely looking forward to that. I'm thankful for that. I'm thankful for the way that things have happened, and I'm thankful to God, too. I always am. I know He tried to put me onto the straight and narrow, and it seems like He's done so. And it seems like I'm doing well with it, but we will still have to see. There's still time for me to screw up and have to take a punishment off of it as well, but hopefully, fingers crossed, we'll see something good happen in the spring. I'm not sure. I don't know. I'd like to see something do well, but we shall see. Hopefully I won't get absolutely blown out in taxes from having the extra income from having my student loans discharged. Well, what little bit of it's there, but still. Do keep in mind that this is taxable income. Now, there have been some disputes over that also as well, because they're talking about one of the American Rescue Plans saying that a dismissal of student loans wasn't taxable, but I don't trust the government. They will get their money no matter how they will get their money. And auditing agents will be there, so we will see what happens with that. But for right now, from what I'm seeing, I'm very thankful. I'm very happy. And we're going to head out of here. So, thanks everybody who came by and chatted in the live chat, everybody who came here. There were some new names here, so definitely looking forward to seeing you guys here next time. If you have decided to stick around, hopefully you guys will. Otherwise, we'll be back here tomorrow to talk about more news, more headlines. We'll probably have an official statement as to what the student loan decision was, plus talking about the Ukraine, because that's going to get announced today too. Plus, we've got the Elon stories, because the whistleblower is going to change a few things up here on the Twitter takeover. I know that I've had to miss the last few Elon stories because there was so much crowded in there, but we do have to talk about it as well. So, we will be here tomorrow bright and early for more Contemporary. Looking forward to seeing you guys here. Looking forward to hanging out with you guys and seeing what we have in the morning. And until then, I'm Jay Edgar, and this is Contemporary. Take care.